Hello, I'm your host Jim McLean. Welcome back to another episode of the Banditflix Movie Review Show here on NVTV. Let's see what movies we'll be talking about tonight. We'll be reviewing Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves. And our pick of the streams is the Palme d'Or winning Triangle of Sadness, which is available to watch on Amazon Prime. So that's what we've lined up for you this week, and joining me in the NVTV studio this evening is Zara Jackson. Zara, great to have you on the show again for the brand new series. I know we're going to be talking about a couple of films. We're going to be talking about Dungeons & Dragons. You have a personal connection to that title. More will be revealed. But before we get into talking about that film, let's have a look at some movie news.
Hi, Barbie!
Hi, Ken! Hi, Barbie! Hi, Barbie! Hi, Barbie! Hi, Barbie! Hi, Barbie!
Hi, Barbie!
Hi, Ken!
Hi, Ken.
With the radio blast and goes cruising just as fast as she can now.
I thought I might stay over tonight.
Why?
Because we're girlfriend-boyfriend.
To do what?
I'm actually not sure.
Okay, ladies, let's do this! What are you doing here?
I'm coming with you.
Did you bring your rollerblades?
I literally go nowhere without them.
So that's a look at the Barbie trailer. Zara, this week has been huge, huge to go full Donald Trump for trailers. We've had a lot released. We've had the new Spider-Man trailer, we've had Blue Beetle as well, but none of them have piqued my interest like Greta Gerwig's Barbie. So I've got to ask, are you as intrigued, are you as excited about this project, about everyone's favourite 6-inch Mattel Barbie doll now coming to the big screen?
I am intrigued, yeah, I'm very intrigued. The trailer was very, like of another world almost, very strange, but like wonderful and magical. So yeah, I'm excited to see what they do with it. I don't know if she's going to be aware that she's a doll and then it's like what happens in doll world, or whether it's sort of like Barbie brought to life. I'm not sure what the premise is going to be, but it looks like it's going to be like a feast for the eyes and the senses. Yeah, it looks really cool.
Look, if Phil Lord and Christopher Miller can make a film about Lego, I think anything can happen these days. I'm intrigued by it. I'm intrigued the fact that Greta Gerwig is helming this project. I mean, let's not go down that rabbit hole of talking about Ryan Gosling's look as Ken. I mean, I feel conflicted. That's all I can say. But even more so intriguing is the fact that Amy Schumer was originally on board for this project. So I just don't know what to expect. I know you're saying you're intrigued, but do you have high hopes for this?
I mean, with Greta Gerwig, yes, but I don't know how far you can go with Barbie. I wasn't really a Barbie. I was Bratz. So if they do like a live action Bratz, I'm there. Another one from the previous one, I'm there. But Barbie, I don't know, not so much. Maybe we'll wait and see.
Look, as good as Bratz were, they never had a great song by Aqua. Sadly, that song isn't going to be in the film. Greta Gerwig has confirmed that. I am devastated. I'm going to have to build myself up and get over it. But we'll just have to wait and see. We can't review a film until we've seen it. But before we came into the studio this evening, or before we started to film, you've told me another little bit of movie news has blew my little mind. So do you want to tell our viewers the other bit of movie news that has caught your eye this week?
It's pretty exciting. It's it's rumoured that there's going to be an Oblivion 2 And this is off the back of the success of Maverick. So they're saying Top Gun Maverick did so well in cinemas. Is this time for a renaissance of some of the Tom Cruise films that maybe didn't do so well, which I know Oblivion didn't do very well, wasn't very popular at the time. I loved it. I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a cool idea. I don't know if it was executed as well as it could have been, but yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm ready for Oblivion 2. I hope it's real. I hope it's not just somebody making that up like a rumor, but yeah, it'd be cool. They did another one.
Hopefully it's not fake news. Hopefully it's not fake news, but I'm intrigued by that. Oblivion is not a film I necessarily thought needed a sequel, but I mean, sorry, viewers, spoilers, if you haven't seen the first one, an army of clones of Tom Cruise. I'm on board for that. You know, why settle for one Tom? One gorgeous Tom Cruise, when you can have, you know, God knows, thousands of Tom Cruise all on the screen all at once. Who needs the MCU when you can have that? I like you, I really enjoyed Oblivion. It's a pretty solid sci-fi feature. It was made at a time when Tom Cruise wasn't necessarily attaching himself to, it was around the time of the rise of the MCU. He was doing these big budget sci-fi films. Personally, I'd love to see the long talked about sequel, prequel, whatever they're going to call it, follow up to Edge of Tomorrow, because I know that has been in talks for a while. And if you can get Tom Cruise back and, well, whatever way it works with the timey-wimey nonsense, Emily Blunt back, there's a project. Mm-hmm. So right now I'm going to put you on the spot, Zara. Now the fact that we have the Cruise Renaissance, I'm going to say it, I don't know if that works, but what other Tom Cruise project would you like to see greenlit and brought to the big screen?
It has to be a Minority Report 2. There's not a Minority Report 2, right? I'm not missing a film. Yeah. God, I loved Minority Report. Yeah, maybe not Colin Farrell again, but yeah, he was okay. Yeah, Minority Report for sure. Some precog action again. Maybe make it a bit more relevant to today and all the talk about AI and all of that stuff. Maybe, yeah, I loved that film. It's my fave.
There we go. So, Stephen, Tom, if you're watching, make it happen for Zara. And look, I think on that note, we shall move on. We're talking about films that are still to be released, films that may or may not happen. I think let's get down and talk about some movies we've actually seen.
To give us a fighting chance, we're gonna need strength. You got this, right?
I know you don't.
We also need courage, magic, and you. What is that again? It's an owlbear.
So that's a look at Dungeons and Dragons. I've already given its full name. I don't need to do that again. So yeah, this is a reboot of the Dungeons and Dragons series. You have a Dungeons and Dragons t-shirt, Zara. And I think this is the stage where we can admit that you have an invested interest in this project because you worked on it. So before we hear your thoughts on the film itself, tell us a little about your involvement in Dungeons and Dragons.
So I got a call in sort of early May of 2021. And Jordan, the script supervisor, was looking for an assistant to help with the scale of the project because it was such a big project. So I got brought on, and yeah, we started in Myra Castle at the end of May, and we went right through to mid-August, end of August, I can't remember now. But yeah, it was like a 4-month project, and it was crazy and wild and busy, and there was a lot of things going on, and all the studios, we were in Titanic Studios for a little bit, and then we were in the TEC, and it was the first film that I've had craft on, where you can just go and eat whatever you want, and I think I put on like 2 stone. But it was just amazing to see how it all works, a really, really big set like that. And the Chris Pine walked past me on the first day, and I was like, that's Chris Pine. And then by the last day, I was like, it's Chris Pine, get away from me. You know, it sort of became so normal so quickly. It was really strange, but it was a lot of fun to work on it.
Yeah, but every day he was going, there's Zara Jackson.
There
That's
she is.
the way. Chris Pine, what can I say? Dreamboat, Captain Kirk. I do love the man. Chris, if you're watching here and want to come back, I will happily chat to yourself, and I have a spare room in the house. I can put you up if you're stuck. So I will come back to you about working on the project, because you've got some props and some bits and bobs that you have from your involvement on the feature. I really enjoyed this. I didn't know what to expect. I remember the fanfare and the chat locally when, you know, like Hugh Grant, Chris Pine were here, and it's like, okay. I didn't necessarily know what to expect, because I have seen the previous attempts at bringing Dungeons and Dragons to the big screen. I think it's Jeremy Irons is involved in that. Not a fan. Sorry, Jeremy, I'm not a fan. So I didn't know what to expect. First trailer emerged, and I kind of went, this is either going to be great or this is going to be terrible. Either way, I'm going to be there munching popcorn by the bucket load. Went to see it on Saturday with my lovely wife. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. You know, I always say, is it worth the price of my cinema ticket? Yeah, it's standard fantasy genre stuff. It's essentially, for a large part, a heist movie. A lot of familiar faces there. We have Chris Pine, who I've already mentioned. I have a man crush on. He's great as in essentially the central role. We have Michelle Rodriguez. And I also just want to say, you know, we have Hugh Grant rocking it as the villain of sorts. He's in full Paddington 2 mode. But as I say, I will happily pay to see Hugh Grant in Paddington 2 villain mode. I enjoyed it. I have a few reservations I'll come back to. But as someone who worked on the project, what was it like seeing on the big screen?
Well, I was exactly the same as you. I watched the trailer, everyone was sending me the trailer, and watched it, and I thought this is either going to be incredible or silly, and I don't know if I want to see it, and I was just kind of a bit in between. I saw it last night at the cinema, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. And because I was only there for about 75% of filming-ish, so there were parts of it that I hadn't seen, and there was parts of it that I had seen like a previs for, you know, they show the effects and how it's gonna look. So I had seen some of the CGI elements and how what we were seeing in the studio, like running across the bridge, how that was gonna look then when it was all put together and things like that. So I had an idea of what some of the sequences would be like, but there was a lot of the stuff I hadn't seen. So actually enjoying it for that and being as much of an audience member as everyone else in the cinema for those sequences was really, really nice. And then the parts that I did remember, then it all kind of came back to me. And I remembered, you know, like where we were when they did certain scenes. And I was like, I was behind that wall, or, you know, whatever it was. So that was really nice to think, God, we're watching this in a cinema. And I remember being there and us doing that. So yeah, it was really cool. And then my two best friends that I was with, Jacob and Jared, were, whenever the credits rolled and I had sort of forgotten that I would be there. It was one of those moments where you're sort of, that's why you're there. But then I completely, because I was just like, that was so good. And we were all talking about it. And then Jacob was like, oh my God, that's your name. And I was like, that's my name. It was wild. And they got so excited and I had a tear in my eye and it was emotional. But yeah, it was really exciting to see it and see it all come together. And I wonder, did I enjoy it so much because it was so familiar to me, or did I enjoy it because of what it was? And I think a little bit of both. I think genuinely, even if I hadn't worked on it and wasn't part of it, I think it would be something that I would still have enjoyed, because there was a lot of heart to it and there was a lot of humor and, you know, it looked cool and all of that. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. Unfortunately, I wasn't involved in the project, but as someone who is a paying punter, I know sometimes as critics we get the privilege of being press screened or get sent screeners. That wasn't the case here. I paid in with the public. It was a busy screening. Nobody was bored. Nobody was restless. Nobody walked out, which is always important. And yeah, I mean, if I'm sitting being critical, I think it's a little long at times. The nods that anything that holds a candle to The Princess Bride and evokes that sense of humour, I will always champion. You mentioned it, I mean, its heart feels like it's in the right place. And this is from the directorial duo that did Game Night, which I absolutely love. So they know how to do comedy, they know how to do an ensemble comedy. I mean, everybody gets their moment. I mean, as I've mentioned, we have Chris Pine, Hugh Grant. I also love Michelle Rodriguez in this as well. She's very much in the kind of Fast and Furious, I can do the action stuff, but it's great to see she does that well, and it's great. As I say, I think it is a little too long, and by the end it does feel a little bit like the first Avengers movie. I think it could probably have cut a set piece or a little bit of the finale. It felt a bit like, right, we need to do something big and over the top, because that's the norm. But if that's my reservation, if that's my major critique from watching a film, as I say, I enjoyed it. I mean, I don't know, do you think it's a little long?
I think it felt slightly long towards the end, yeah. I think the story beats that I remembered all happened very early on, and then I was kind of watching for what would be next and how the story would play out, because we would only get sides on the day, you know, I would only have seen what we were filming that day. So for me, it was almost like watching it and putting a puzzle together, because all the pieces kind of had to fit for me. And yeah, towards the end, I mean, I knew that the last sequence was the dragon that comes to life, and you know, Sophina is doing all her magic and stuff like that. And the maze sequence we had broken down so much and done in such little parts that I didn't know how long that would be. So that to me felt a little long. But yeah, I think thinking back, all of the elements that kind of happened, sort of, I can't think of what they would take out, if that makes sense. So yeah, it was a little long, but if I were to pick something to take out, I don't know what I would pick, because it all kind of seemed to fit and seemed to be relevant in a way.
Yeah, and hey, we've got a body positive portrayal of a dragon, which I thought was great. You know, let's just say, as someone who's a huskier gent, I think it's great to see not always the more rotund dragon on screen. It's a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. As someone who's involved, and I know we keep coming back to you on that, but what's it feel like then? You've mentioned you've seen your name in the credits, but this film has got really positive reviews. It's got strong audience response on Rotten Tomatoes. We've already mentioned in the show the likes of the MCU. It's beaten some of the MCU titles in terms of where it's getting in its box office, not just here in the UK, but across the globe. What's it feel like then to be involved in a project shot here, not solely here, but a large part of it was filmed here, that's now been such a success throughout the globe?
It's really lovely. Yeah, it's really nice. I'm really happy for the guys, because they're super talented, and the way that they, you know, they're very funny as people. Obviously, it comes through in their work, but you know, they would just sometimes have like a quip, and they would talk amongst themselves, and then they go, "Chris, say this. Like, what about this line?" And he would kind of banter back and forth with them, and they'd sort of workshop a few different versions of things that were just, I mean, they had us like in stitches. It was just so funny. And for them and for the whole crew and all of the local people that worked on it and all of that, and just how kind of well we were all treated, and the culture of the film was really lovely. It was a very positive set, and it was, you know, that trickled down from the top kind of thing, and you knew everybody and everyone knew everyone's names and said hello in the morning. So I think to have such a nice experience on it and to have such good memories of it is so lovely then when it's reflected in the cinema and people have a positive view of watching what we all, you know, work to create. So yeah, it's really nice, yeah.
And at this point, we will say you have a few little tokens, memorabilia from when you were involved in the project. Do you want to show our viewers?
Well, I brought my staff pass, because I thought that my little assistant script soup, that we had to sign in with every morning. So yeah, D&D Productions, I've got that. And then I've got this was my notebook that I wrote all of every slate that we did, and every camera, you know, focus and what lens we were using. I wrote it all down in this, and then I got Chris to sign it, and he did a lovely little buck teeth on my penguin, which I really appreciate. And I put it in here because I noticed the pen started to come off, and I was like, save the notebook. So that's in there. And then we were able to ask Chris to sign photos of himself. And I got him to write, I don't know if it'll pick up on the camera, but basically I asked him to write, "Dear Zara," that's the name I was gonna guess for you, because in Star Trek, when he says to Uhura, "No way, that's the name I was gonna make up for you," or whatever. So just as a little nod to that. I'm sure he's had so many, he's like, "Star Trek, really, 10 years ago?" Probably more now. But yeah, I just brought some little trinkets with me. And then we got this as a crew gift at the end, and we got a little handwritten note from the producers and stuff. And it has a D&D tour on the back, like a movie or a music poster, and it has all the places that we filmed at and the dates, and it's just a really nice memento. So yeah.
Fantastic. So that's a lovely note to end this section of the TV show, and with that we'll move from the big screen to the digital screen.
The ship is going under.
What the world needs now is love, sweet love. No justice
really bad. This is really, really bad.
So that's a look at Ruben Östlund's Palme d'Or winning The Triangle of Sadness. It's available now on Amazon Prime. I don't really know how to kind of start to explain this film or set this up. I know a lot of the heavy lifting will have been done by the trailer, but this is yet another one of his satirical black comedies. It's his first English language feature. Some people may be familiar with his work, The Square, which also won the Palme d'Or. The film I'm most familiar with him is Force Majeure, which was remade terribly, starring Will Ferrell. Do not seek it out. But this is another satirical film that is kind of taking more than a gentle stab at the uber rich. And there's a lot we could talk about. I guess maybe as we talk about the film, we'll maybe say a bit more. There's a yacht, things don't go to plan, and then there's an island. That's as much really as I think we need to say. I have mixed feelings about this film. I genuinely do. As someone who is a fan of the filmmaker's work, I don't know, but I will open up to yourself first, Zara, and see, what did you think of Triangle of Sadness?
It was wild, is what it was. Like yourself, I don't really know where to begin or how to describe it. I think the part 1, part 2, part 3 thing, for me, usually I enjoy that. And then a couple of friends recently had sort of said, when a film does that, I feel like I'm waiting for, like I know that it's not just gonna be a film all the way through. I know that it's gonna be in parts. I know that there's gonna be a stop-start, there's gonna be a title card or whatever. And so on this one, I found that I was sort of then waiting. I was like, how many, is 4 parts, 5 parts? What's gonna be the next part, you know? Which, yes, it breaks it up, but maybe this film does need to be broke up. Maybe actually it would have been too much all in one. So maybe it's a good thing, but I found that I was sort of waiting for what the next one would be and thinking about the fact that, you know, it's called The Yacht. Okay, so this is going to be about, okay. It's not that it gives anything away, but you sort of, I don't know, for me it just, that's what I kind of found hard about it, to sort of get through those parts. I found that difficult.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't necessarily have issue with the framing in that context. I think there's 3 in total. The part 1 and part 2 are probably the most interesting for me. Part 1 is this kind of discussion between a couple about kind of the gender politics. So will you pay for dinner or I pay for dinner? As a man, I feel obliged to pay for dinner. Should I pay for dinner? And there's a whole discussion and leapfrog from that, which I thought was interesting, could it be explored. Probably the second sequence, the yacht, is probably the one that held my interest the most. Let's say you do not want to be going on that cruise. You do not want to be on that boat. As someone who has always had reservations about the idea of going on a cruise, I watched this with my lovely wife and turned to her and said, right, that's it. We are not going on a cruise holiday. I'll do a city break. Nothing can go wrong there. Nothing can go wrong. That's probably the most outlandish sequence. I mean, as we say, things don't go to plan. There's a dinner sequence that is memorable for all the wrong reasons. It's kind of a little bit Monty Python-esque in its visual humour. Woody Harrelson is there as the captain of a ship you never want to see. And throughout the film, I kept coming back to one central problem. What's the point? What are you trying to say to me? Is it the excess of wealth that deep down they're all the same as you or I? Kind of the absurdity, the naivety of the uber wealthy. I get that, and it's grand. I mean, as I say, everything that's on the ship is funny. Although I kind of wanted it to go like the menu that's all I think is available now on Disney Plus is probably something I find more palatable and more accessible and more enjoyable. Once it gets to the last section on the island, it didn't work for me. I will say this, and I know it's verging on spoilers. There's a sequence involving a donkey, and viewers, it came too soon after the Banshees of Inisherin for me. Everyone fell in love with donkeys because of the Banshees of Inisherin. There's a sequence here, I just didn't find it funny. I didn't find it, and I'm not going to go too much spoiler if I didn't find it funny at all. And in the big reveal, I was just underwhelmed. I just left. I don't know whether it's not that this is his first English language film, whether that sense of humour hasn't carried across. I don't know. I've talked quite a bit. I'm throwing a lot back at you, Zara. But generally, anything you want to pick up, I mean, I've been left really underwhelmed by it, if I'm honest. And I look back at previous Palme d'Or winners. I think one of the last times we had you on the show was Titan, which is a Palme d'Or winner. I get it. I see why that film won the Palme d'Or. I don't with this, if I'm being brutally honest. And I know it's Oscar nominated as well. I just don't get the hype. Do you?
Yeah, I think I do. Well, I think first of all, visually, cinematography for me is never really a big thing. It's usually story for me, but I think his use of color and sort of the warmth of the film and his use of light, I think was really interesting. That was something I sort of picked up on. But in terms of the story, I mean, the stuff at the end, I was getting Parasite vibes with the rock, without giving too much away. And I actually think that what Parasite was trying to investigate, and that whole thing of, it's the behavior of the people who have and the behavior of the people who have not, kind of. And I actually, because that's been explored before, I find myself going, okay, like you going, okay, it's about the uber rich, it's about this. What else are you trying to tell me, or what else do you want me to think about from this film? But by the end, actually, it landed with me, and I was like, no, I actually really like the questions that it was asking, and found it quite interesting. And yeah, there was a lot to it, because that moment at the end where you know that she thinks she's going to lose everything, it sort of hits you quite hard. And I didn't really think it, because she scared me. I was like, I am not into this girl. I wasn't into Carl either. I thought he was stupid. I really liked Mila, the guy's, was she his wife? Was the other woman also his wife? Did he have two wives? So. I don't know, I'm not sure. Also the bit where he's just like taking off all her jewelry, just on the bit, oh, wow. I was like, what is it? But I actually think, so that sort of stuff, because you don't want to laugh at it because it's really like wild. But the stuff with the donkey, I didn't find funny until the guys were like comforting him afterwards, and he was like balancing on the guy, and he was like really using him for support. Then I was like, wow, this is outrageous. But yeah, I think it landed sort of more with me than I thought it would. It was not what I expected at all. I remember it being in the QFT, and I remember it just seeming like a sort of farcical, jaunt. And then watching it, I was like, this is crazy. So, but yeah, I did really enjoy it, and I actually did enjoy the themes in the end. Yeah.
Mixed thoughts on the film. As I say, I don't dislike it. It just didn't land for me. And I would say to anyone watching, I mean, even The Square isn't fantastic. It's another Palme d'Or winning film. Again, there's that absurdist quality to it, and that kind of looking at the arts. Force Majeure, I think, is an absolutely fantastic film. So, if anything from this, check out Triangle of Sadness, but also check out Force Majeure. And with that, we are out of time this week. So all that's left for us to do now is check out what movies we'll be looking at next week.
This game isn't just addictive. It stays with you. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
Hank, only 10 other people in the world have seen what you're about to see. It's called the Game Boy.
Package it with Tetris. Can you get us the rights?
I believe in your son. I believe he's the future. And his story is gonna make us want to fly. But a shoe is just a shoe.
Until my son steps into it.
So that's a look at Air and Tetris. We'll be talking about that next week. Zara, are you intrigued by any of those two titles?
Intrigued about Air, yeah. Viola Davis and her real-life husband play Michael Jordan's parents, so they seem charming in real life. So I'm excited to see what they can bring to that, yeah.
Okay, well, you have to see what we think about the film when we review it next week. And with that, that's us out of time. So all that's left for me to do now is thank you very much, Zara.
Thank you, Jim.
And thanks very much for watching at home. We'll be back next week with another episode. But for now, until then, goodbye.